I'm really interested in this concept of change and how the CIA drills into you that you need to accept change because in all of our lives, one of the things that most of us are quite bad at is accepting change. We're very rigid. Again,
Mhm.
maybe that's because of perception and ego and these kinds of things. But when I was reading through the what they teach you at the CIA, they change your relationship with change.
They do. So a big part of the advantage of having change is the fact that it's not natural to accept change. So if you can adapt to change faster than your opponent, you have a built-in advantage. You have an edge. So these three principles, time, distance, and change in direction, these three principles that CIA teaches as concepts apply in multiple different ways. So as an example, time means that you need to accept that things take time, that time is a resource for you to use. Too often we feel like time is fleeting, time is running out. We have to take action quickly, like time is against us. That's not really true. In fact, time is a tool that you can use to break things down. Secrets don't withstand the test of time. How long will it take for you and I to get into each other's secret lives? 9 months. That takes time. Not many people would wait 9 months for anything, right? But time is a huge advantage that you have. If all of your opponents are rushing and you're the only person who isn't rushing, time becomes a huge advantage to you that nobody else has.
Explain that in the context of business then.
So in business, people are trying to make a rapid sale. Most people want an impulse buyer, right? What do I have to say right now to get you to buy my $7 thing? I don't really want you to buy a $7 thing. I want you to buy a $97 thing. If it takes me 3 weeks to get you to buy a $97 thing, it takes this other person 3 minutes to get you to buy a $7 thing, who's the better salesman? Well, I would argue that it depends on what you're looking for in terms of long term. This person selling a $7 thing every 3 minutes has to find a new lead. They have to find, arguably, if they sell one out of every 10, if they convert at 10%, they need to find 10 new leads every 3 minutes to make $7. If I convert at 10%, I need one person to buy a $97 thing every 3 weeks. I have a much less demand on my time to find new leads. And I can qualify my leads better. And if someone's willing to spend $97 on something, guess what that tells me about that person? They have more disposable income. The $7 person, I don't know anything about their disposable income. Do they have some? Do they not? Is that mom and dad's credit card? I don't really know. I'd rather spend 3 weeks of time cultivating a person who buys a $97 something, because then I can sell them a $297 something. And then I can sell them a $997 something because I can test their threshold for price sensitivity.
Was there any situations during your time abroad where you felt like your life was at risk or any sort of really clear apparent threat?
Yes, there's one specific moment which I'm actively trying to get cleared by CIA to talk about, where I felt like with high confidence that I had fallen under the scrutiny of a local country's surveillance team. So I was in a foreign country. I believed I fell under their surveillance apparatus and they were actively surveilling me. And the country that I was in and the job that I was doing in that country made me believe that if I had a surveillance team on me, their goal would be to apprehend me at a certain point in the operation, at a point where they could get the most propaganda and political leverage, et cetera, et cetera. So that occurrence happened in about 2011. And I'm trying to go through a process now to get that cleared by CIA. Up until about 9 months ago, CIA was giving me the thumbs up that I'd be able to talk about it. But then geopolitical tensions in the world changed and CIA changed their mind along with that. So now I'm exploring what avenues I have to get them to adhere to their previous approval of letting me tell my story versus being forced to adhere to my continued secrecy agreement.
So you were in a foreign country, you felt like you were under the surveillance apparatus of a foreign country. What gave you that impression? Was it looking over your shoulder and seeing something, or?
It's the process that we're trained to use for surveillance detection. So we're trained in a process where you run what's known as an SDR. And in that SDR, you have steps, methods that you use to determine whether or not you are being actively surveilled. And again, we use time to our advantage. So it's not like something happened in 5 seconds and I thought I was under surveillance. I intentionally carried out a series of steps over, say, 3 hours or 6 hours. And over that period of time, I had enough information, enough data points to confirm with high confidence that I would be under surveillance.
SDR?
Surveillance detection route.
Okay. And that could be like a car following you, or it could be
A person following you, or a drone following you, or your phone being acting in a certain way to make you believe that you're being digitally or cyber surveilled.
sex espionage.
Is everyone's favorite subject. It's a very real thing. It's a very real thing that's used in different ways based off of a country's civil rights. So in the United States, we don't really use sex espionage.
Don't really?
We don't really use it because it goes against the rights, the individual rights of the citizen who works at the intelligence agency, right? So if you tell a female intelligence officer that they must sleep with this target in order to get information, you're violating her rights as a US citizen. In China, that's not the same case. In Russia, that's not the same case, right? In the UK, they don't subscribe to forced sexual acts in service of collecting intelligence.
Forced.
But
you can if you want to.
What ends up happening is you can if you want to. And for those people who do, they end up creating what's known as an operational security risk, because once sex is involved, the power shift becomes untenable. So if the whole goal of a handler is to maintain control over the asset, once sex happens, it's harder for the handler to maintain control over the asset in a objective relationship, because now sex leads to feelings, like hormonally, it leads to feelings. The act of orgasm releases certain hormones that create senses of connection with another person, right? So when that oxytocin drops, when that neuroepinephrine drops, your body starts to tell you that you are connected to another person. That is the antithesis of a proper asset handler relationship.
You fall in love with them.
Then we call that falling in love with your asset.
I won't ask you if you ever engaged in anything like that.
I appreciate that. I was fortunate enough that I made all the connective hormones I needed to make with my wife, who was also CIA.
Disguises. Did you ever wear a disguise?
Absolutely. Yeah. Disguises are something that are much more common than people would believe, and much less quality than people would believe.
Really?
Yeah. So most disguises, what we actually call disguises inside CIA, we call them costumes. We don't really call them disguises. Disguises is a word that's used in pop media and pop culture. In the real world, we call them costumes. And our costume departments, our disguise department, the whole objective behind a disguise or a costume is just to make you not look like you.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
Not to make you look like someone else, not even to make you look like a realistic person. It's just to make sure that you don't look like you, right? So consider your picture, what you look like. You have some very definitive features. Your nose, your forehead, your beard shape, your hair, right? The way that you hold your face, the neckline that you have. So if we wanted to change your appearance just so that you didn't look like Stephen Bartlett, all we'd have to do is take away those things that make you you and turn them into something else, right? We could put a nappy redheaded wig on you. We could put giant oversized sunglasses on you. We could shave your face or paint your beard gray, or even put a fake mustache on. We could put an oversized necklace around your neck. And now the picture of that is not going to look like the picture of Steve Bartlett.
Those are all light disguises though, right?
Correct.
Is that there's deeper types of disguises, right?
Correct.
I've always wondered if they like plastic surgery and, if they give a spy plastic surgery and those kinds of things.
So there's 3 levels of disguise. There are some places that will go as far as permanent plastic surgery, but most Western services won't do that because it doesn't help the officer. Like, to have a permanent change to your body made doesn't make you more effective at going undercover, because now you're just permanently changed. So you still look the way you look. The value in a disguise is being able to reset the disguise, to reset the costume so that you don't look like yourself. So our 3 levels are level 1, level 2, level 3. Light disguise is level 1. Level 2 is long-term disguise. Level 3 is something that we call prosthetic disguise. So light disguise is what we talked about: oversized sunglasses and a nappy wig, and all of a sudden you're a different person, right? You're Loyola. You're not Steve Bartlett anymore. Phase 2 is long-term disguise. Long-term disguise means it's still you, but we change you physically for a long-term operation. So instead of having short hair, we grow your hair long. Instead of having a beard, we shave you clean. We lose some of that hard-earned body mass that you have, or we gain body mass that you don't really want, right? Maybe we put some kind of fake but long-standing tattoo on you, right? We do something with you that changes the way you look physically. It's still you. The reason that's important is because you always have to ask yourself the question, what will a police officer think when they storm into your hotel room at night? If you're wearing a light disguise and a police officer storms into your room at night, they're going to ask questions like, why do you have a wig? Or if you don't have a wig, you just wear a ball cap and a hoodie, there's nothing for them to ask, right? They're basically saying, oh, this is you. Your license says it's you, and you wear this ball hat, this ball cap, and this hoodie all the time. Whatever. You're not going to jail for that. So level 1 and level 2 disguise are very safe. It's hard to get someone arrested using those two. Level 3 is what the movies are made out of. That's your prosthetics. If we put fake ears on you, if we put a fake nose on you, if we change your eye color, if we put in a fake missing tooth, right, instead of a real missing tooth. If we do that kind of stuff to you, police officer breaks into your room in the middle of the night. Now they ask, why do you have a fake nose that you're not wearing right now? Why do you have fake eyebrows? Why do you have fake ears? Why do you have a blacked out tooth, right? Now they look at your ID and you don't look like your ID.
Much less common, I'm guessing, than level
Very
3.
uncommon, very uncommon. And you would use them strategically at different times. But if you watch too much Mission Impossible or Alias, you start to think that people wear disguises all the time. There's so many problems to disguise. There's so many operational inadequacies to disguise that we could have a whole conversation about it, right? Like, things don't stick to your face in the extreme cold. Things don't stick to your face in the extreme heat or when you're sweating your ass off in the Philippines. Things melt. Makeup melts. The adhesive that sticks a fake mustache to your lip starts to disintegrate. Like, there's all sorts of problems with prosthetics in real life that Tom Cruise doesn't have to worry about in the movies.
When people think of spies doing espionage overseas, wearing disguises and all these kinds of things, it does make you think they must be exceptionally good at dealing with fear, because a lot of people would be too nervous or too anxious or whatever to not like crack under that kind of pressure. If you're meeting the guy that has the nuclear codes for Iran or whatever, and you've been working for 9 months to meet this person, you know, you've got to have a good handle on your own anxiety and your own fear. Do the CIA target people that are good at that, or do they train that, or is it both?
It's both. It's a great question. It's both. CIA wants people that carry a certain level of anxiety, because when you carry anxiety, you're naturally paranoid, which means you have heightened observational skills. Most people who suffer from anxiety feel like they're inadequate in some way. In reality, they are hyper adequate. They are more than adequate. Anxiety is a superpower through the eyes of the CIA. I would take somebody with anxiety any day over somebody without anxiety, because anxiety keeps you alive. Anxiety keeps you sharp. Anxiety keeps you learning. It keeps you attentive. It's a good thing. But to your second point, you are also trained. You are trained to understand how fear works. And like, to oversimplify it, your brain has 2 hemispheres, right? A left brain and a right brain. Your left brain is your logical brain. Your right brain is your emotional brain. Because you have 2 different hemispheres and they operate on 2 different bases, right? One is based in logic, one is based in emotions. They actually operate and they process at different speeds. Your logical brain processes much slower than your emotional brain, which is why it takes you an instant before you're scared, but it takes you maybe minutes, hours, weeks before you're convinced. So what ends up happening is fear in an untrained person, going back to our conversation about trained versus untrained, in an untrained person, fear is an emotion that's processed by the emotional brain very quickly. So then they react instinctively to their fear. That's where a lot of people who suffer from anxiety get held back. When you can train someone to understand that the same thing that makes them emotionally scared is also being processed by their logical brain. Your brain is actually going through the process of determining how scared you really need to be. If you can just slow down the emotional brain and train the rational brain to work a little bit faster, your whole relationship with fear completely changes.
How do they train you to slow down your emotional brain so that you don't react?
That's a big part of the reason why you have a controlled training environment that lasts for multiple months. Because what they do is they inoculate you. It's called stress inoculation. They inoculate you with scenarios designed specifically to trigger your emotional response. Even though you have been trained to not trust your emotional response, they inoculate you so that over and over again, you have to go through the process of, I feel fear, I have to not accept it. I feel doubt, I have to reject it. I feel like I'm being watched, I have to reject it. I have to give my rational brain a chance to catch up so that I can get objective facts about the scenario. And there are some people who don't do it well. There are some people who never inoculate themselves against fear, so then they end up getting cut from the farm.
So for the average Joe that's listening to this now, or Jenny, the average Jenny that's listening to this now, and they live a life that's held them back because of their fear. You know, they don't take the risk. They don't raise their hand to do the presentation. They don't lean into uncertainty. Based on your training in the CIA, what would you suggest that they should do to get over that fear?
So they need to inoculate themselves as well.
Inoculate means
expose yourself in controlled ways to fear. Very similar to the way you inoculate against COVID or you inoculate against the flu, right? You expose yourself to a strain that's weakened so that your body can gain some sort of familiarity with it. You do the same thing with fear. So if you're afraid to give that presentation, you're not ever going to change the fact that you're afraid to give a presentation, but you will be able to change something that you're less afraid of. So if you're afraid of going to the gym, if you're afraid of eating at a certain restaurant down the street, if you're afraid of stepping out of your front door, if you're afraid of asking your friend their opinion about whether or not you're overweight, find something small where you are less afraid of this than you are of this other thing, and inoculate yourself with this. Like lean into the small fears, the fears that you already know are kind of irrational and simple. And if you can overcome those, what will happen is you will start to gain momentum. And the thing that you do to inoculate yourself is to know up front, you know you're going to have an emotional reaction. You already know it. It's the thing that you're afraid of. You can predict that. So you already know, I'm going to ask my buddy Steve if he thinks that I'm overweight. I'm terrified to ask him. He's either going to say yes or no, or he's going to take some cop-out answer and ask me what I think. But I already know that it's going to feel uncomfortable. But he's my buddy. It's low risk. Let's see how it happens. Let's see what it goes, right? So you go and you ask the question. You put yourself in the face of fear. You're still going to have the heart palpitations, the cold sweats. Your emotional brain's going to take off, and all of your physiology is going to like let loose. But then Steve is going to tell you his answer, and it's over. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then when you do the same thing with your friend Jenny and the same thing with your friend Bruce and the same thing with your friend Robert, by the time Robert tells you his answer, your body's not reacting the same way as it did when you talked to Steve. Small inoculations are training your emotional brain to slow down and training your rational brain to speed up. So then you move on to the next most scary thing without going to the scariest of things.
You know, I was thinking about that as you were talking, and I was thinking, gosh, I think a lot of people know that. I think they know that the way to get better at speaking on stage is to go and speak on stage, but they're still held back by, you know, oh God, if I do that, I'm going to mess up, and then people are going to think I'm this, that, and the other, and then I'll never X, Y, Z.
Right.
So you can say that to someone, but getting them to take that first step seems to be the impossibility. Like,
and here's where the former CIA officer in me comes out. Because if you're too afraid to do that, good. I don't want you to do it. Because you being unable to do it gives me the advantage. The person who's listening to this, who says to themselves, I'm scared, but I'll do it anyways, that's the person who deserves the opportunity to change their life. The person who's listening to this that says, I'm too scared to do that. Good. I need you to stay exactly where you are, because in our world, the flat out truth is our world needs cogs. Our world needs people who are trapped in the consumer cycle. We need those people, because the people who are trapped in that consumer cycle, the people who are prisoners to their fear, are the people who run the economy. It's the people who are willing to break that cycle and capitalize on the fears that you can't overcome. Those are the people who actually provide you the service that you need, because you can't do it by yourself. So I want to encourage the people who are willing to take the scary step. And I also want to discourage the people who already know that they're too afraid. We need both.